For thousands of years, we've been digging deep into the earth, pulling out all the stuff we need to build our civilizations. But that brings up a really big question, right? Long before electricity, how did anyone manage to survive, let alone work hundreds of feet underground in the pitch-black, suffocating darkness?
Okay, so let's really get into that. How did they solve the most basic problem of all? Just getting a single breath of fresh air to the bottom of a mine. The answer, it turns out, is way more clever and, frankly, a lot more dangerous than you might think.
And let's be really clear, early mining wasn't just a tough job, it was a living nightmare. Just imagine, stale, unbreathable air, invisible pockets of poison gas, and explosive fumes that could be set off by the very flame you need just to see. And all of this is happening in a crushing, absolute blackness, hundreds of feet from daylight.
To survive these hellish conditions, ancient people needed an engineering solution that was simple, powerful, and didn't need any complex machines. And what they came up with was brilliantly counterintuitive.
They didn't have steam engines. They didn't have electric fans. Their solution had to come from the world around them. And they used an element that was both their greatest tool and, as we just saw, one of their biggest dangers. That's right, fire. The very thing that eats up oxygen and creates smoke was the engine they used to pump fresh, life-giving air into the deepest parts of the mine. So how on earth does that actually work?
It all comes down to basic physics. It's like a giant chimney. Miners would dig two shafts. At the bottom of one, they'd light a great big fire. Now, what does hot air do? It rises, and it rises fast. All that hot air and smoke would rocket up and out of that first smoke shaft. This creates a vacuum, a powerful suction that pulls fresh air down the second shaft, circulating it all the way through the tunnels where people were working. Just like that, you have a constant, life-saving, man-made breeze. So simple, but absolutely genius.
And this wasn't just some theory. We have incredible archaeological evidence of this technique in action. So let's head over to Wales, to a site called the Great Orme, where miners were using this exact technology thousands of years ago.
The Great Orme wasn't some isolated little project. As you can see from this map, it was a major industrial site. It was part of a massive network of mines all across Europe, all of them feeding the demand for copper and tin, the key ingredients for making bronze.
We're not talking about Roman times here or even medieval times. We are talking about the Bronze Age. People were digging these incredibly complex tunnel systems over 200 feet deep 4,000 years ago. Just think about that.
And we know this for a fact thanks to hard science. Radiocarbon dating of tools and other artifacts found deep inside the mine show that it was in continuous operation for almost 1,000 years. This wasn't a short-term dig. It was a multi-generational industrial enterprise.
And this shows just how clever their strategy was. On the left, you see the peaceful landscape of the Great Orme today. But on the right, the geological map reveals what they were really after. See, they weren't just digging randomly. They were expertly following these very specific layers of rock that were rich with copper ore.
So what about their tools? Well, the toolkit was brutally simple. Their hammers were literally just hard rocks they carried up from the beach. Their chisels were made from animal bones. And to break the really hard rock, they used fire again in a technique called fire setting. They'd heat the rock face with a huge fire until it cracked and became brittle enough to just smash apart.
So we have this incredible story of ingenuity. It's amazing. But we can't forget the other side of the coin, the sheer brutality and the immense danger that came with this kind of work. This quote from a modern mining engineer really puts it all into perspective. For pretty much all of human history, going underground to mine was the deadliest job a person could have. Those dangers we talked about earlier, that was a constant, daily reality for them.
And one of the most terrifying threats was something called fire damp. This is basically a pocket of natural methane gas. It's completely invisible and odorless, but the second it touches an open flame, like a miner's candle, it explodes with catastrophic force.
To deal with this, mines had a job that is it's hard to even comprehend. The fireman. This person would have to crawl into the tunnels alone, holding a long pole with a candle at the end. Their job was to probe the ceiling and intentionally ignite any small pockets of fire damp, hopefully without setting off a blast big enough to kill them. It was a terrifying and often fatal duty.
And the human cost didn't end in the Bronze Age. As mining industrialized, the fire-driven systems evolved into these complex networks of doors and flaps to direct the airflow. And who operated them? Often, it was young children, sitting all alone in the total darkness for 12-hour shifts. Their only job was to open a door when they heard a coal cart coming.
You know, the simple physics of fire-driven ventilation pioneered by those ancient miners really laid the groundwork for everything that came next. But today, the scale of the technology we use is almost unimaginable.
Just look at this comparison. Fire drafts have been replaced by colossal mechanical fans. Animal bone chisels have been replaced by automated boring machines. Some modern deep mines even have the world's largest air conditioning systems just to keep the temperatures from becoming lethally hot.
And this really puts the leap in power into perspective. A single modern ventilation fan can have a 2,000 horsepower engine, moving millions of cubic feet of air every single minute. It's the same principle as the Bronze Age fire, creating a current. It's just on a completely different industrial scale.
When you look back, it's pretty clear. From the very beginning, building our world has meant sending people into dark and dangerous places. Those Bronze Age miners risked it all with tools of stone and bone. It really makes you wonder, as we continue to rely on materials pulled from the earth, what's the true cost of the resources that build our modern lives?